All right, I click go live. And it's saying we're live, Mike. Are we live? Are we actually live? Can you hear me?
We're live. Let's see.
Can you hear me okay, Mike?
I could definitely hear you loud and clear.
I can hear you. Can everyone out there hear us? That's the real question. We're almost down with this. It's episode 31 of the Nonconformist. We've come from, recording content outside of this, live realm to now trying to bring you live broadcasts to bring you the most up-to-date information. So we're experimenting here. So please let us know. I think I see us live though.
I think. Live.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna share this bad boy. So I think we could wait a minute anyways until some people come on. All right, so hopefully everyone can see this if you've come on now, but and I can tell I have the right thing on. So yeah, so you see the episode. Today's topic is U.S. dollars over. Here comes Bitcoin. Mike, let's give them maybe 2 more minutes, and I just got to adjust this anyways. I'm going to get this shared out. Bam. So we hope everyone's doing well. We are here. Today's date is Thursday, July 30th. Wow, sorry, August.
Yeah, it's August, man.
July 30th. So
it's been a long year, hasn't it? It's one of those years, huh? 2020 vision hindsight.
I feel like you say, like, I feel like we always say, it's one of those crazy years. It's always one of those crazy years, right? This year is incredibly crazy, though. As we're going to talk about today, things are changing very quickly. You think COVID is wild. You should really check out the economy right now.
The U.S. and its citizens are being put to the test. Not only socially, but economically, monetarily, everything. We're being put to the test, bro. And I don't know what you guys grade ourselves as, but we need more help. We need to do something because we're not doing that well. It's been a little hard. It's not where we would like to be as a superpower.
So, Mike, I think we're good to go and we're live here. And again, today's date is Thursday, July 30th, 2020. It is 8:30 on the dot. We're happy to be here with everyone. This is the live streams are something that we're trying to bring to you as an update almost to the content that we provide. If any of you have paid attention to anything that's been going on in the world over the last 6 months, or if you have been listening to the Nonconformist the entire time, you would have noticed that the economy in the world is changing very rapidly. Every day is different than the last, and one of the fastest ways we can provide this information and value is through live streams. So please let us know through comments or information on your questions, and if you see any technical difficulties. We got a little update today. We got some banners. We have the episode title up here, and if you want to find out more information or episodes, you can go down there. Is it Thirsty Thursday? Should we just do Thirsty Thursdays as like
it is? Well, you know what? It's been I got my Bitburger here, my pint, and then it's probably my third today, and then I had my Aventinus pint. Well, not a pint. This is less than a pint, but
that's the stout, right? That's the heavier stuff.
Yeah, that's the heavier stuff. This has 12% alcohol. This stuff is great.
It's pretty good though.
Not because of the alcohol content, but the flavor. Very good.
So I've got Henry's Farm here from Two Road, double block lager. So Mike, you said you were a fan of German beers as well. Is there any significant? So what's the significance of that? Why German beers?
The significance between German and also Belgian beer is that they have laws set in place to protect the authenticity and the quality of their product. So when it comes to from the grain to the process, everything, it's actually controlled, and I think it's actually a nice way of quality control. compared to here that we have less stringent types of ways of quality control. So you don't some micro have done a great job of getting great barley and non-GMO and all of that stuff, but Germany and Belgium, they're super strict when it comes to protecting the formula. And you know, come on, man, you can't go against a 300-400-year-old tradition of beer making. Some of these families have done beers for like 400 or 500 years. I prefer to buy their beers because, it's time. It's
It's
tradition.
it's almost like this is the free market capitalist argument, right? If you those nations or those economies that know how to produce a good efficiently in the best way out of the world at a cheap cost, you let them do it, and you trust that they're going to be good at it. And I feel like whether it's German beer or German cars, right, or in German engineering, it's these nations, we kind of identify them as being specialists. But what people don't realize sometimes with economics, and especially capitalism, because you hear the debate right now is there's a fight against capitalism. But we've discussed here quite often is that there's been crony capitalism since the 70s. There hasn't been free market capitalism. If there was true free market capitalism, then we wouldn't be trying to keep steel here in the United States, because of the fact that math tells us that if there's another country that makes it better than us at a cheaper rate, let them make it, and then let us focus on something else. I think that's good.
Yeah, it's definitely good. You know what? Germany does a good job of creating beers. They do a good job of cars. I love German cars. I've owned many German cars, and I'll stick to German cars. Go with what you're good at. Italians know how to make tomato sauce. Americans know how to make burgers. So that's what's great about a free market economy. Let everybody do what they're great at, and if they're great at it, buy it from them so that they can continue making it. With crony capitalism, right? That gets exploited, and that's why capitalism has become a negative in our times, because people on certain portions of our society has used that against what capitalism should be. Capitalism is just an idea of letting us trade amongst each other. But we have crony capitalism, and it's in a form of fascism. Fascism is corporatism, which is what Mussolini was great at, combining corporations with government. And that's what we have in America. And it's not about presidents, it's about the system of economy. And that's what we got. That's why, capitalism needs to be a little separated from that, because that's not the same thing. So,
well, we're going to see the capitalist system. We're going to see it really come to its test here as we transition into the new digital economy, like we've discussed. Some of the topic of today's episode is, of course, the U.S. dollar's over. Here comes Bitcoin. So, one of the things that you see in a free market capitalist society is that typically the government regulation that exists is very light on entrepreneurs. There's the ability for the small man to create the business, or the small woman specifically, because I think we need more females in entrepreneurship, to create the new business and compete with anyone in the world. And this is something that that we're going to see happen very quickly here. The U.S. has made it very clear in the crypto and the blockchain space that they are lagging behind in this market, in this economy. Here we have Xi Jinping and the Chinese government saying officially now, about 8 months ago, we brought it up as this news was breaking, that China is poised to be a leader in blockchain technology. China has committed via their president on national news to be the world leader in blockchain technology. And here we have in the United States, many states and just the government doing what it does through bureaucracy, of course, really hindering this innovation. So, I think right now, we've talked before this, Mike, right now we're truly seeing in a day-to-day world the fight between the American experiment, the capitalist American experiment, and now we're seeing a new type of governance structure start to come through, probably a little bit more clearly socialist and communist, as we've discussed. And technology, though, is the transition. We brought up the technocrats in the past. But this was a big week in crypto. We saw this week officially the U.S. Treasury has announced that all banking institutions in the United States can now offer crypto services to their clients. So officially this week, it is over for anyone. Peter Schiff, anyone that's ever said anything. Warren Buffett could take that 180 billion that he was sitting on, because right now he's buying up everything at pennies on the dollar type of thing. He could take that money and take a ride. Bitcoin and blockchain will be the future. People over the next, in my opinion, over the next 6 to 8 months, we'll start to see the Federal Reserve roll out that digital dollar. And now that banks are allowed to hold crypto and offer Bitcoin custodial services, I think we're going to start to see the transition into the new economy, Mike.
I totally agree. Right now, there's no way to argue that crypto, gold, silver, and other precious metals are actually a way to hedge against inflation. We are looking at hyperinflation. The dollar is already decreasing in value, and we're not even in a new depression yet, right? We're still waiting on numbers to come down in Wall Street. We still have the stimulus floating through. We have second talks coming through. Trump saying today that the stimulus might be more than $1,200, maybe. If that's the case, he's really trying to get the system rolling until the last quarter. Usually, the last quarter really shows the true colors of what's going on in the U.S. economy, and so it's interesting to see. But if you guys want to actually protect your assets against hyperinflation, I think you guys need to look into Bitcoin, Monero, gold, silver, and other precious metals, platinum. There's many out there. And I think it's very important because we do not know what holds in the future, but what has held historically are alternative types of, currencies. And currencies could be many things. And right now, crypto is, it's being talked about a lot. Value's going up. It's an alternative. Here in the United States, you might not look at it as something as important. But if you look at countries that actually have hyperinflation, like Venezuela, Argentina, places in Asia, Hong Kong, with what's going on with China, Bitcoin is used like dollars are. It's something that it's needed. So start you looking into it, please.
This is something we've talked about a lot, is that America would be the last country that would convert and adopt this new currency. We are the reserve currency of the world. The way that the system works, and I know a lot of people don't, Mike, we don't go through economics in school. It's not taught to us. You and I went to business school. This was not taught to us. But the way that this kind of works is that these systems only last for so long, right? And then there's going to be a transition into this new kind of system. And the currency does go through inflation. This only happens once every 3 generations. So the fact that our parents don't understand this and our grandparents don't understand this, and no one understands what's going on from an economic or currency perspective, it doesn't surprise me that they don't understand it, because they haven't experienced it in their lifetimes. These transitions into a new currency, into a new economy, only happen every 80 to 125 years, 120 years or so, over the last 500 years on average. And we just happen to hit the coin flip that goes from, okay, now you got the heads, you guys got it. So just like people realized in February and March when the Dow dropped 40% in a week, that shit happens fast, right? And you don't have time to readjust your 401k. Good luck logging on a Thursday or Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. to try to reallocate your portfolio and hope you catch that Monday morning trade. Yeah, right, it's done. And this is why Paul Tudor Jones, the Paul Tudor Jones news was so significant about 2 months ago at this point. For those that don't know, Paul Tudor Jones is a very well-known and respected hedge fund investor, him and Ray Dalio, of course, owning or starting Bridgewater Associates down in Madison, Connecticut, is the #1 performing hedge fund in the world. Paul Tudor Jones comes in very shortly behind Ray Dalio. He's just as respected in the industry. Paul Tudor Jones, as of 2 months ago, officially came out in the public and announced that he has officially allocated 2% of his assets into Bitcoin. The reason why he has hedged into Bitcoin is because of the risk of inflation from the dollar. What we're witnessing, what everyone is watching play out, you don't realize it, but in the background, there is a transition happening. It's going to happen quick, it's going to happen fast, and we're starting to see the early signs of it. And this is what we're saying is that the dollar itself is over. Now, the propaganda, I think, Mike, is what's going to confuse people, because in my mind, we released a video where we talked about the Fed creating this digital dollar before they announced it. And now what I kind of see happening is that, imagine you log into your Bank of America account tomorrow, and then you just get that like updated policy notification, and then it's like, oh, accept our terms and agreements, and like little do you know, boop, and you just see like your online banking like you've always seen, and it's really just wrapped in the Fed digital dollar. So maybe the dollar doesn't end, but as far as what we know it as a fiat currency in paper form, I think it's officially kind of on its way out at this point.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what's important to know, what we need as a society here in America is we need to fight for a dollar that actually has value behind it, because if we continue to, even if it goes from what we have right now, fiat paper currency, into a digital dollar based off of fiat principles, where you're creating currency out of thin air with no value. The only value is what's out there. The more you actually generate, the more it's used is what gives it value. What you're doing is creating debt. We don't need that. We don't need debt. We already have too much debt. What we have to do is suppress debt and start to profit as a nation. Until we get that, we'll be enslaved. That's just the way it is. So I don't care if it's digital or analog, whatever you want to call it. It needs to be based off of something with value, so that there could be accountability behind it. Until then, we will continue, even with a digital dollar. If they could base it off of a Bitcoin basis, it might help to get off of the debt. But we need to really scrutinize it, because at the end of the day, the Federal Reserve, we have given them the ultimate power to dictate policy monetarily. And what it has done is it's divided this country into, rich and poor, mostly. Even if you're a millionaire, you're not a multi or billionaire type of person. That means that you don't actually create policy. Mm-hmm. You're still with the rest of the folk. So yeah, you might be higher on the echelon of, of things, but at the end of the day, you're still with us folk, which actually don't have much power when it comes to laws that are actually implemented in this country. So, being said, if we have a cryptocurrency that is still enslaving us into debt, we will continue to have the issues we have. So, what do you think about that, Joe?
No, I think it's absolutely true. Here's the truth: is that we're just not all taught. It's not like we're lying about anything. All we do, Mike, is you and I have agreed that this is just the truth. And if you can take an objective view and just discuss the truth, and we all get emotional about it, and even me sometimes, you try to not your subjective emotions get involved. But if you just look at the truth and you seek the truth is there. And the truth in the banking system is that there's corruption, and there's a lot of scandals, and we all agree on this, but we kind of we let the day-to-day get in front of us, and we're not really taught on it, so it just kind of comes by us. And in my opinion, the days where I think this is going to be good for society ultimately. Listen, here's the ironic thing that's happening right now, is that the truth is that the scam really, the system that we know as this whole kind of corrupt capitalist kind of environment we've talked about started in the 70s, and that's ending very quickly. And everyone has an opportunity right now to take advantage of a new system. It's an escape from the current system. It's an insurance policy against the current system. And if you're willing to just accept that and learn it, you have the ability to kind of get ahead of the game. And that's kind of where our focus has been here, and that's really ultimately all I care about at this point. Because people need to know about this. They need to know about finance. They need to know about economics because we're not taught about it in school. It's not something that you're going to rely on a university or a high school or a middle school to explain, but it's something we do on a day-to-day basis. We're expected to make money. We're expected to spend money. We're expected to save money, but we don't know what money is. And the biggest joke of all is that money ultimately is the root cause of all of the evils that we see in the world today, but it doesn't have to be. And it hasn't always been that way. And we're just moving back into a system that has always existed. Mike, we talked about gold and precious metals. We've been talking about that for a while. Gold is the second topic on tonight's episode because it looks like gold is now making a breakout. It's going to surpass its all-time high. Goldman Sachs has officially come out. They're putting gold targets at $2,500, $2,600 and up. We've put a price projection on this show at $5,000, around $5,000 within the next 3 to 5 years. Silver at $250 to $500 in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think that we're going back to a gold standard with Bitcoin, and whether it's Bitcoin or something else, at least we'll have choice. But this is where we're at. Have you seen coin shortage signs down there with the metals shortage that we're seeing right now in the markets?
I have not seen any signs where I'm at. Well, I have not been around a lot recently. I stay home and I go out every so often and go do groceries, but I go to Whole Foods all the time, and you have the multitudes of lines, and then you have one or two that actually take cash. But I have been seeing a lot of coin shortages and all of that. Obviously, it's a ploy to get people off of that whole cash system, and it's the best way to do so, right? If you don't have if you don't have coins, then you can't really give accurate, exact change. So you have to pressure a person to use their debit card or credit card to actually do a purchase. So it's perfect. You could use the concept of there being a pandemic to actually phase it out. China had this going when they were in the midst of COVID. They started to really prohibit the changes of dollars or yuans, right? So we're seeing the same thing here. But what does that mean for us? I don't know. All I think it does mean is that they're trying to get us accustomed to a new dollar digital system. And what does that mean for the economy as a whole? It means many things. We need to really see what this new monetary system is going to give us as a nation and a society in return. Because the dollar, over the last, 80 years, 84, 86 years, has not done us any favors. Especially since the 70s when it was completely taken off of the gold standard. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, what we know is that gold, this is another thing about economics that is important for people to understand is that, Mike, we got technical difficulty. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. And this is the Nonconformist. You can visit the Nonconformist at thenonconformist.io. If you like what you've seen, you should consider seeing what the Nonconformist has at thenonconformist.io. Why the heck can't I get my screen back on? Can you hear?
Always something, man.
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hold on. I'm going to get it back.
But yeah, man, like we have Monero, who's a great, is a great cryptocurrency where, if you don't want prying eyes to look at your currency, the amount of money you have, that's what you should use. If you want total privacy, Monero's the way to go. Bitcoin, that currency is being used more and more widely throughout the world. You know, as the dollar goes down and the crypto goes up, is the way to go. Look into that. Make sure you protect your assets. I know a lot of people want to, play around with the stock market. You can still play around with the stock market. Just make sure that right now you could buy as much crypto as you can to use as a hedge. Once, I project the economy crashing around October. Obviously, it's pretty obvious why I say that, right? Because traditionally October is the month that we have these crashes. But if we do, the stock market will take a huge dip, and then transfer your crypto into stock if that's what you want to do for the long term. There's a lot you could do. There's many strategies. Just you have to understand that dollar right now is not in a great place. It's not only the dollar. You have the euro, you have the yuan, you have yens. They're all in the same position because they all have adopted this fiat, mentality of printing, creating debt. They know it's failing. That's why they're trying to adopt a new system. So you don't want to get lost in that mess. Make sure you continue to look into alternative currencies. If you still want to also, you want regular currency, look into, Swiss francs, look into, Kuwaiti dinars. Though Kuwait their economy is strongly based off of oil,
It's
which you have to be careful off of.
I feel like it's too
But
hard. It's too hard, Mike. I feel like they just got to buy. They just got to buy Bitcoin.
yeah,
Monero.
go into, literally Bitcoin, Monero, gold,
Well,
silver,
because
palladium.
what I question now is game theory. The whole argument that China started, so the U.S. has to start, and then the rest of the nations has to start. So if we're gonna transition off the paper currency, um, you're right. Dollars are where people shouldn't have it. But I do question whether we're going to see the whole paper currency market kind of fall apart. We don't know that. We don't know ultimately. Um,
No, you're right. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Interesting in a negative light because we will suffer as a nation. When the Russian economy crashed a couple years ago, the ruble took a huge dip, and the only way that people could protect their assets, you could say, they would use their rubles to purchase TVs, cars, all types of products that are exported, right, valuable goods. And they would buy, like, they would literally, there were people that were buying 10 to 20 TVs, flat screens, at 1,000 a pop in their currency, and they would keep this at home, and that's how they would actually transact. They would trade a television for a watch or a car, a couple TVs for a car. They did that because Russia doesn't produce much,
mhm.
and they export a lot of oil, but they don't import a lot. I mean, they import a lot, but they don't export a lot aside from oil. We here in America are almost in the same predicament. We are a little more diversified because we have a lot of services, especially like, technology based services, Google, and all of this. But being a superpower, we do not export a lot. You would expect for us to export more, but China is the one that exports a lot. So we would be buying a lot from them and other nations that do, like Vietnam.
People
A lot of
don't.
the,
People
a
don't.
lot, yeah.
People don't realize, Mike, that the top three industries in the U.S. economy are military, industrial. No, I think it's first is financial, right? Second's tech, Silicon Valley. Third is military industrial complex. Arguably, second's military industrial complex. That's about what the U.S. economy has going for it. We used to be industrial after World War II. We used to be this, but again, the young people are upset in the streets about capitalism, but they don't realize is that crony capitalism came in about in the 1970s. Good old Dick Nixon, President Nixon, right? So this is not what we've seen in this type of structure. But this is something that we're going to see move forward. And arguably, this is what is happening with China. This is what people do not understand is that, the Samantha Guthrie on the Today Show and CNBC is going to tell you that there's a trade war going on with China, but what they're not going to do is build in the context with the fact that the Chinese over the last 10 years, with or without the support of the U.S., we've been saying the support of the U.S. really ultimately has been able to just slowly buy up all of the shipping ports and buy up all the real estate and slowly make the relationships. And we're watching a transition of new world powers, and with that is going to come the transition of the currency.
Yes, yeah, you're totally right. Like if we look at the history of China, since we've been talking a lot about it, since 1949 the CCP has been created, right? Mao Zedong took power completely, you know, and from there they've been able to establish a system where first it was completely based off of the communist system, and then later on around the 70s up until the 90s they incorporated capitalism within their system of economics. You know, Chiang Kai-shek back in 1980 in 1949 he got kicked out. They all went into Taiwan, and that's what China's fighting over right now. They went and they created their capitalist idea of what China is. China, the People's Republic of China, the CCP, they went and they did their own thing. America, we have certain factions here that are trying to do the same thing as Mao Zedong used to do, and that's dangerous when it comes to economics, right? We're already in an economic situation that is dire. Right now, well, if you look at history, Mao Zedong, he incorporated, a Marxist ideology, created a Politburo that actually held a certain power. They gave him total power over the country. They created a system where landlords, they took everything from them, gave to the peasants, but then the peasants were disempowered and went into famine, right? And if it wasn't that the U.S. government, through Henry Kissinger and Nixon back in the 70s, they went in there, they opened them to the whole global economy, they wouldn't be where they are right now. The 90s became even bigger after 1989. But, between there, you had the Cultural Revolution, which is similar to what we have here in America. We're having a cultural revolution, and it's not a positive thing. When you hear cultural revolution, you think, oh, this is something good. No, the Cultural Revolution back in the, in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, in China, it was pretty much the youth were the ones that were they looked at the people that, kids that were in their teens and in their 20s. They looked at them as, hey, they're going to carry over the, Marxist Maoist mentality of, a system of one party system,
Yeah.
and oppressing, the more free market economy. So what the Chinese did, what Mao did, was pretty much they destroyed, history. They wiped out, anything that was cultural within China about the dynasties, anything that had to do with culture and history within China was destroyed. And they thought that this was going to help China move on to something better. And what they did was they eliminated, they killed college professors, any intellectual, any business owner.
Is this a story where they tracked these people through like documents and then they actually kind of went out and they did a cleansing of the knowledge almost?
Yeah, they did a cleansing of knowledge. Anything that has to do.
This is documented history. I want people to actually actively go out and
cancel culture. This is cancel culture at its freaking craziest. Pretty much they had a cancel culture. That's what the Cultural Revolution was, a cancel culture. They canceled anything that actually described the history of what China was, and even its greatness. Anything that had to do with the positives and the negatives was completely wiped off. And the only thing that they actually ingrained within this young society of people, which were college age students, 20 and below, they ingrained and indoctrinated them to actually believe that this Maoist mentality of peasantry was the power that you needed to embrace. And what people don't understand is that the peasantry was actually used and exploited to give this one party system ultimate power. They fed this one party system while the peasants died. They went into total famine. My son over here even knows how power. You know,
Aramis.
yeah, Aramis he's totally here. He understands what
Yeah, the
happened there. But
strength.
we're trying to do the same thing here in
Yes.
America. Some people here in America they're trying to do the same thing, canceling the past. I understand there's a dark past that we have, but we need to look at this dark past and not repeat it, because you know what, America has a dirty, dirty, dirty past, and I think that negatively throughout school history, going through school, we were not taught the truth as students, and now we're going to be taught less of the truth. And that's the issue when you have a cancel culture. And so we're going through that. And then going back to China, they went into 1989, Tiananmen Square, all of that happened, and then the 90s they changed course. Mao Zedong died, a couple years before that, and they moved towards a more industrialized capitalist hybrid. And now look at where they're at right now. There's still a one-party system using this hybrid capitalism, one-party system to actually gain, a lead in the superpower realm of what this world is. America is slowly, they're losing steam here. They're losing steam because we're highly divided, and it comes, we talk about racism and a lot of other things, but racism, I totally believe, is a huge issue, and you have to look at why we have racism and classism and all of that. It's because of the fucking monetary policy. You guys got to get it through your damn fucking brains here. It's the monetary policy is what creates classism and racism. The only reason why we have poverty, high debt, we don't have entrepreneurs within certain segments of our society is because the monetary system is putting people into debt and into poverty more than they should be.
Now, Mike, I want to build in right there because you and I had a discussion about 3 or 4 weeks ago outside of the Nonconformist. But why do you think that people actually, we talk about race, but we know that racism exists within the races themselves. And the fact is that I'm always asked, Joe, why do you obsess so much over the currency? Why do you obsess so much over the economy? And this is not something that I had always obsessed over, but in this time in history, it's just so significant, and it's hard to not. But how do you even begin to explain this to people? How do you someone that's saying, Joe, why do I care? Mike, why do I care? Why do they care? Why do they care right now?
You have to care because number one, the monetary system, which is the Federal Reserve System that creates every time the president or any lawmaker or any bankster says, hey, we need to stimulate the economy, we need to give money out to either the public or to corporations, what they are doing is printing debt. They're creating debt and then giving it to us to pay back. So when they say they want to print $3 trillion and stimulate and give stimulus checks and unemployment, all that, at the end of the day, we have to pay this back with debt. And they will, and they have come to us and they have increased taxes so that we have to pay this. So if any person that goes and graduates high school and then they go into college, whatever race, whatever background, you could be rich or poor, and then you go and you become an employee, the first thing you do when you receive that check is you pay taxes. And those taxes are not to pay for your highways and utilities and all that. Those are paid with bonds. Bonds that are taken. Bonds are pretty much just debt. That's all it is. You're asking for money to pay for something. What your taxes are actually, your income taxes are paying is paying for the money that has been printed to be given to the economy. So every time you have this income tax taken away, FICA, that's supposed to pay your interest. All right, the interest off of each dollar printed. All right, so that's the first issue we have here. We have a total Ponzi scheme. Same thing we have with the Social Security system. Hey, I love the idea of being able to take care of our seniors so that they have a nest and they can live their last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, happy without any real financial issue. But the way the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve has it set up, it's a freaking slush fund. It's a slush fund, and there's nothing that we could do about it right now. Aside for complain right here on a podcast, nobody does anything about it. We are paying into a system that's another Ponzi scheme. And, what does that leave us as employees? It leaves us with less money every time. And then, you have state, federal tax. If you have the bad luck of living in a state with state taxes, you have a state tax. You have Social Security and Medicare you're paying for, and then you have your regular check. And then from there, you have to pay all your living expenses. And many of your living expenses has taxes on it. Look at your electricity bill, your cable bill, the gasoline you use to go, to fuel your car, to go back to work. All of that is taxed over and over and over again.
Your income, your wages,
everything.
You don't own that home. You don't own that home.
No, we have property taxes. If you're renting, your rent has property taxes in there because your landlord has freaking factored that in there. So you're paying taxes over and over again on top of taxes. And it's all to fund, the Federal Reserve System, which is a Ponzi scheme. It's, people even know that it's a private entity. It's not even a public. It's a private entity with shareholders that we have no idea. They're secret. It's confidential. So we don't even know who are the people that own this. There's conspiracies out there to who could own it, and we could talk all day about that. But at the end of the day, we know that it's a private entity, and they make so much money off of our blood, sweat, and tears. And so when you go back to talking about divisions within society and race and gender, whatever it is, at the end of the day, they're profiting off of all of that. That's why we have this huge divide in this country. What we need to protest is against them, not against each other. That's why we have this huge divide and this huge freaking poverty gap and all of that.
The thought's already been brought up on the Kaiser Report. Shout out to Max Kaiser, Stacy, Herbert. I could recommend that everyone watches the Kaiser Report, including the Nonconformist. But the truth is that there has been this sort of financial terrorism that's been going on. This system is completely kaput. Mike, I think that if people really want to know what's going on, they should continue to follow us because a lot of this stuff is what we talk about. But one of the things that you see most with the Federal Reserve is that the Federal Reserve has been abolished several times in history. So if you want to quickly talk about something that's not a conspiracy, we'll talk about history. And the Founding Fathers did not want central banking included in this country. Central banking had been abolished in this country 3 times before the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913. Andrew Jackson
fought up against it.
Yes.
The reason why we fought against this is because we knew private entities wanted to capitalize off of this. Because in England, they did that. The Bank of England, that shit was hijacked. I don't even have to mention families and all of that that actually hijacked these. These are factual. When you go back into history, you could see this. This stuff actually exists. And we had this happen, 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act. Woodrow Wilson with what he created, under the radar, or Christmas Eve, right? Instead of having the whole, Senate and everyone there in the cabinet, all of them voting. No, he did it on the sneak. And then he also introduced the Federal Income Tax Act to back that up because you need, how are you going to pay the interest off of each debt dollar printed? You need freaking tax, right? You need interest, which they taxed us. And then on top of that, they created a law where, if you own gold, that was illegal. So you need to turn your gold into the government. That is crazy. None of this is talked about in school. No. None of this. Not even in college. Not even in grad school. We went to grad school. Did they ever talk about this? No. Why didn't they talk about this? Because they don't want you to know what the hell's going on. That's why we need to talk on the sidelines about all of this. We are a deeply indebted society. The whole world, there's hundreds of trillions of dollars owed in debt. Who the fuck do we owe this debt to? We don't know. Well,
Mike, I think that's a good place to leave this episode. If people want to look more answers to that question, more answers to that content, you can subscribe to us for free, of course, at the nonconformist.io on our homepage. If you want access to our private newsletter and a lot of further answers to these questions, we actually just put out some calls on the markets, stock calls going into the Q3, Q4 in this year. You can go to the nonconformist.io forward slash subscribe to subscribe to that newsletter. But Mike, that's going to be it, man. I got to take off here, but I think this is good. We'll see what happens now, man. Hey, banks are allowed to carry Bitcoin, so I think the roller coaster is going to keep going, bro.
They have to, wherever the money's at, they have to go to. So that's why people need to empower themselves. The only reason why we talk about crypto is for a way to actually, be independent off of the banking system. In the meanwhile, try to do what you can. If you actually have money, go ahead and diversify your currency. Diversify it if you can. Diversify, and then if you don't, figure out do a business or two that you can actually create value. So the moment that you can diversify yourself, you could freaking do it. You know what? Because we don't know what the hell's going to happen in the future. So that's why we're talking here, because why not? Why not speak about the truth? This is what's going on. And as time goes on, we are starting to see more and more of what's the reality in this country. So, hey, let's freaking do something about this.
And everyone, just remember to try to chill. Shout out to Chill Shump on the beat, bro. Fresh U crew. We out here. All right. And again, if you guys like what you hear, you can find us at the nonconformist.io. If there's anyone out there that's looking for Bitcoin education, you can find us at adoption.io. That is adobtion.io. Thank you so much, and we look forward to talking to y'all again. Peace.
Hello.